Hello and welcome to Games That Suck, a gaming retrospective in the Shea Hates Everything podcast family. My name's Kyle, and I will be your host today, and I am, of course, joined by my brother, Shea. Welcome, Shea.
Hi, hello. I will be your host today sounded a little bit like a threat, the way that you said it. Like, I will be your host today.
Put the lotion in the basket. Games That Suck is a series where we look back at some of gaming's worst smelling video games. Each episode, we focus on a particular year in gaming, arguing, we'll be doing some of that, about what the bottom 3 games of each year should be. And this month, we're talking about the worst games of 2024. This year.
It's the moment y'all have been waiting for, man.
Yes, we have lightning dashed our way through time and space, mostly time, to year 2024, to the present. It would be that, what's the Back to the Future time title card, present.
Right.
And here we are. We have a whole bevy of video games to talk about. All of them bad in one way or another. But
some in multiple ways, yes.
Yeah, some in almost every way.
Yeah.
And we have to make some determinations. We're going to talk through this list, which is alphabetical. We're going to talk about, like what the game is, who it was made by. We're going to give a Metacritic score for them. And then we're going to hash out some of our gripes, some of the gears that have been ground by these games. And then we're going to make from the long list, we're going to make a short list, and from the short list, a bottom 3.
Yes, I believe we are starting with 14 games.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of whittling down to do.
Yeah, it's interesting, I found myself struggling to find games to put on this list at first, just off the dome. But once I went back into the Wikipedia list for 2024 games, it started to really, I was like, oh, right, this game was this year, or that game was this year.
Yeah, speaking for myself, I don't know if this resonates with you, Kyle. I feel like, because we do this for every year, right? Going back to 1995, we've done 95 through 2000 now to this point. And as we go back and remember all the crappy games that we played as kids, it's really interesting to compare those games to the crappy games that we play now.
Yeah,
because I
bad
do
in
feel
very
like
different ways.
They're bad in different ways. Most of them are not nearly as bad as the games we played when we were kids, because video games are just better now. They're broken and horrible and sinister in lots of different ways, but the actual game design, making video games has become so much more democratized that I don't mean this to be dismissive of game design, but it's easier to make a game, literally technically easier than it was 20 plus years ago. And so I feel like the bar of quality is higher, the basement bar. What is that? The low end bar is higher than it used to be.
Yeah, the floor.
I also feel with there you go, the floor, that's the word I was looking for. The basement bar, the floor.
No, the bar that goes in the basement.
Where you tie people up, the basement bar.
Oh, no.
Or if you want to take a not gross angle, it could be where you got booze and when you throw a party, the basement bar. But no,
like a wet
abusive
bar. I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the second point I was going to make is with the marketing cycles of games these days, I feel like the truly rotten games, the big budget ones that are truly rotten, are way easier to spot. And avoid because of that.
Right.
And there are just so many more games that you're less inclined to take a chance on a bad game now than you might have been when we were 10. And so looking at this list, a lot of the just bad games we didn't play because it was obvious that they were bad, so we didn't play them. And that didn't used to happen like that. But there are plenty of bad AAA games on this list too that we did play.
Oh yeah. Okay, well all right, we talked about our process. We have cemented ourselves in the present time and place. Let's dive into it. And then we're going to start it with Alone in the Dark, the remake. This came out for PC, PS5, Xbox Series X and S, developed by Pieces Interactive, published by THQ Nordic. Has a Metacritic of 63. So this is a fun one. Embracer acquired THQ Nordic and Pieces Interactive. The game didn't do well, so already Embracer has shut down Pieces Interactive. So we're talking about this developer's final game. So like this game, well, look, I'm not going to say this game killed this developer. Embracer killed this developer by being Embracer and all the shitty shit that they did. However, this game did not save them from Embracer. It was not good enough to save them from Embracer, which that's a whole other conversation. Just wanted to contextualize this release a little bit. So Alone in the Dark, a classic survival horror series, a franchise that had kind of a cult following for the original one. It was a first for a lot of the survival horror genre with some of its mechanics and things on the original PlayStation. I think it was like 95 or something was the first one. Maybe it was later than that, but it was mid to late 90s, I believe. Really kind of turbulent last 20 years or so for the franchise. Some really kind of rotten entries. And so this was like a remake of the original one. So it was purported to be like, hey, we're going back to the roots. We kind of like the IP bounced around a little bit. It was kind of messy, but we're going to take the thing that people generally agree on is good and remake that. Unfortunately, it's just not good because just like we talked about, the standards for games now are much higher, and I think a lot of the problems that this game has are it was too ambitious, like they tried to throw in a lot of mechanics to make it feel like a modern video game when maybe they would have been better served to have it be a little bit more narratively focused and not have like things like combat and stuff, because that's kind of where this game really falls apart. Just the shooting.
But like, do you feel like you could you have even gotten away with that in an era where the RE4 remake came out, the Resident Evil 1 and 2 remakes, Silent Hill came out this year? Do you think they could have even gotten away with stripping it down so much that it's kind of just like an adventure sort of puzzle solving game?
I think that would have set it apart. See, like that's the problem, is it was a little bit of like a trend chasing. Like they felt like they were going to be compared, so they tried to lean into that, and they just didn't have the chops to make it happen. So what ended up is they just made a really bad version where then they're being compared to those games, right? Mm-hmm. And saying, oh, they have all the same kinds of mechanics, all the same systems. You have weapons mapped to the D-pad that you can swap out, and you're fighting different enemies, and it's survival horror, so you're finding ammo, limited resources, etc., health, blah blah, in addition to all the puzzles and narrative stuff going on. But they're not executing on it at a level that is interesting, or feels good to play. So that's why I think it would have been much better served to be like a tighter narrative driven experience, because that would have set itself apart from those comparisons that I think really hurt it critically. Because I looked through a bunch of reviews for it, and almost all of them call out, hey, in a year where you have Resident Evil 2 remake and blah blah blah, like, and the Dead Space remake recently, why would you play this game? So they I think trying to preempt that criticism by stepping into that landscape of the genre, I think they shot themselves in the foot. And they would not have shot themselves in the foot had they not had guns to shoot themselves with in their combat. So I'm clever.
The biggest thing that stood out to me in like the reveal and marketing of this game was getting David Harbour and
that's true.
Jodie Comer attached to it. And also, like, I don't remember his name. The dude that voiced Leon Kennedy plays, like, the guy they're trying to track down.
Oh, I didn't see that. Okay.
Yeah, what's his name? I had pulled up the Wikipedia page. Paul Mercier. He's the dude that played Leon in Resident Evil 4.
Okay.
But anyway, point being, like, they got, not like, you know, David Harbour and Jodie Comer are A-listers, but they're like pretty hot talent,
recognizable,
right now.
yeah,
recognizable,
right
and
now.
like, they're not necessarily up and coming, right? Like David Harbour's been acting for 30 years, but like they're popular right now.
They have a presence,
so they can't have been super cheap, and also very talented actors. I mean, I didn't play Alone in the Dark, so I can't speak to like if their performances worked and were good, but they certainly spent some cash getting talent like this, and it just feels like it was a marketing stunt, because you don't need to do that when you're remaking a game like this,
right?
And so it feels like a way to try to get more eyes on the game, and didn't work. Did not work.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the pitfall of this particular game, right? Was attempting to make it something that was outside the scope of their capabilities to deliver. And that's through including, you know, some B-list talent, not as a pejorative, but B-list talent. And
that does sound kind of like an insult. I know you didn't mean it that way, but it kind of does sound like an insult.
Yeah, that's you're right. I apologize. I'm sure the cast is listening. But you know, that's like they fell afoul of trying to, you know, step beyond their means, and I think it really kind of ruined what could have been a serviceable homage to the past. It kind of got mired in trying to be in the present. So Alone in the Dark remake, it's not bad enough to stick around. Also, neither of us have played it, but I've watched a good chunk of it. I've read a bunch of reviews on it. I know that it was disappointing for a lot of folks who are kind of like diehard fans of the original. I have not played the original Alone in the Dark, but I've heard really good things about it and want to go play that original PlayStation game. But like this, I would not waste my time playing it based upon feedback and what I have seen.
Yeah, because this is your kind of game. That's what makes it. This is my genre. Like,
yeah.
You know, to my point I was making earlier, where like a lot of the marketing makes it easier to spot the duds.
Right.
Like this is totally a game that you would have played had it looked good and come across the line well. And so, you know, thanks to the marketing for helping you avoid a bad game, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is obviously, like, I was never going to play this game, but you totally would have.
I would.
And because it was bad, they missed out on your dollars, man.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, and we have very frequently considered games we haven't played in the past for like the bottom three.
Yeah, like Cyberdeck.
This one. Oh yeah, but that's kind of what I'm saying is like they need to be special,
right,
in order to make it you're the Cyberdillos of the world,
right?
Yeah,
don't worry, we have one coming up in a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. But yeah, I don't think Alone in the Dark quite hits that mark.
Yeah. This next one doesn't either. Again, another game that I've not played, but I wanted to talk about because I feel like nobody actually knows this game exists. And it's A Quiet Place: The Road Ahead for PC, PS5, Xbox Series X and S, developed by Stormind Games and published by Saber Interactive with a Metacritic of 67.
See, I totally thought this was a VR game.
So there is a Quiet Place VR game that is a different game.
Okay. All right.
This is just like a
and
3D...
maybe not as bad.
You know what? I didn't look at that one, so I don't actually know.
It's not on this list. It must be really good, huh?
Yes, that is the bar for avoiding this list is really good.
Oh, you can play it in VR.
Oh, okay. So this has
There is a VR version.
I see.
I believe.
Okay. Well, that honestly, it changes nothing because the game is still very bad. My first bullet point here is there's a 5-hour long play of this game, which is pretty short. It's like a Call of Duty campaign. However, I scrubbed through it. I watched probably about 45 minutes total of this video game. If you could just move at like a normal speed, I think it would probably be a 3-hour game. But it's a quiet place. Like, you have to walk on the sand and not make any noise. Yep. And like the way the enemies come in, I don't remember what the monsters are called, if they even have a name. but like when they, because obviously they are attracted to sound is the conceit, and so like if you make any noise,
they found sound sexy.
They found
attracted
that's
to
right.
it.
They're big into big S, all about that bass and treble. They don't discriminate.
Big time into ASMR.
yeah, super into it. They're predators, and they don't have eyes, and they sense their prey by sound, and so they like basically wipe out the population of the earth because we're very loud creatures. And it's a whole thing. And then Jim from The Office sacrifices himself in a move that he totally didn't have to do had they all just kind of stood still and been quiet, and it would have been fine.
What a great recap of the movie.
Yeah,
Love it.
that's basically the whole movie. And this game requires you to do a lot of standing still and waiting for the enemies to leave. And that's kind of why it's 5 hours versus 3.
Sure.
Just because you have to take your time doing everything. There's only one enemy type because it's like one creature or whatever. So they do partway through develop the ability to also sense your movements, not just sound, which means that you just have to stand like super still and like not even move, not even on quiet surfaces, not even on quiet places.
Is that a thing that happens in the movies?
I don't know, because there was like another movie, and I think like a show or something.
No, they made a sequel and a prequel. There's a Quiet Place 2, and I think it's called A Quiet Place Day 1 or something.
Incredible.
I've seen neither of those.
Yeah, and I never will. So I don't know if that's a thing from that or not, but that is like a way for them to like amp up the tension or make it more difficult or whatever towards the end. But like the characters that are in it, I don't know if they're from the movies or whatever, but they're super underdeveloped, uninteresting. Like there's no actual character arc. They kill off a couple characters. I saw that as I was scrubbing through, and I was like, wow, this boring, disinteresting, like vanilla dude just died. Oh no.
Wait, I'm reading the Wikipedia page. The main character in this game has asthma.
Yes. That's the other gameplay mechanic, is that when she gets stressed,
so dumb.
She can't breathe and has to use her inhaler. Yeah.
No, she would die immediately.
Yes, absolutely.
It doesn't work like that.
No, it doesn't.
That's so stupid.
Just in general, though, there are very few actual gameplay mechanics outside of just like not making any noise or moving when these things are close to you, and just trying to like proceed through the narrative, which is, from what I saw, largely uninteresting. Which, granted, I'm scrubbing through a YouTube video, so of course, but I'd like to think I've played enough games to smell the stinkers, and this one seems to be not a loud fart, but a silent but deadly one.
Well, yeah, and looking at some stuff, this feels a little bit like streamer bait.
Yes,
like, yeah, play this if you live stream and have your over the top reactions.
You can jump and like heighten it up. Yeah, this totally would have had one of those trailers with some influencers you've never heard of or seen screaming.
Yep.
So that's A Quiet Place: The Road Ahead. Also not going to stick around because we haven't played it, but just wanted folks to know that they also made a game about this like universe that was maybe interesting for half of a single movie.
Yeah, it is tough, right? Like the second movie I was interested in at first just because Cillian Murphy's in it, and you know, I love that guy.
Yeah, sure.
But when they made the prequel also, I was like, okay,
we need to
I think there's enough here.
Film industry capitalism is so fucking disgusting.
Yeah, man. Like it is the death of art. It's like one system, like like one mechanic. Yeah. Like there's one thing about these bad guys. We don't need 3 movies about how you can't make noise.
Yeah, well, and
it's
also,
just not interesting.
Also, they solved the problem at the end
also,
of the
they
first
solved
movie.
the problem.
They solved the problem. So, like, why is the, like, I don't know what happens in the second movie, but is the second movie just them implementing the solution to the problem?
Could be.
And not being able to do it?
Yeah, I don't know.
But then, like, why is a prequel interesting? Because you already know the solution, so this the whole time you're just screaming at them, like, what's-her-face is going to discover the solution to this in a basement. You know, Tony Stark built this in a cave style. And, like...
Everyone loves an origin story,
like,
man.
Somehow nobody thought with these creatures that are based on, like, do all of their things based on sound probably have really sensitive hearing membranes. There's no way anyone ever, like, no one else in the entire fucking world thought, hey, what if we, like, play really loud high frequency noise to damage their membranes? No one thought about that. Anyways,
we need to move on and not we need to not analyze a movie that came out 8 years ago. Next on the list, because we're only on the third game, is Concord. We got to talk about Concord.
Poor Concord.
This game was developed by Firewalk and published by Sony. It has a Metacritic of 62.
I'll note that's lower than both Alone in the Dark and A Quiet Place, which doesn't seem fair.
I would agree with that. So I played the beta of this game. I played for like a couple hours. I mostly didn't like it because I don't like PvP shooters. I just don't enjoy them anymore. They make me angry and I don't have fun. There was another large part of me not having fun, which was to say there's like 0 player onboarding in the demo. They just throw you in. There's like no, hey, play around with this character in a tutorial, understand and learn all of their abilities. And so you just kind of get thrown in there and then you get your ass kicked as you're trying to figure out what buttons do. And that was just a miserable experience. But like that you can kind of set aside because assumedly there would be some sort of onboarding tutorial in the actual game itself. The problem is you had to pay for it.
Yeah.
In a world where every fucking PvP shooter is free to play, they decided to charge $40 for a game that no one wanted, no one was excited for, and no one played the beta of. So that was a huge misstep. But I think that the biggest reason why I'm kind of apathetic in talking about Concord is I don't think it's that horrendously bad of a game.
No.
I think that there are a lot of systems in the game that felt like more experienced people would have figured out, or I don't know, different or better leadership will have sussed out. And it's because like it just feels like they didn't play test it enough when they launched it, because the whole system around like picking characters, and you have different types of each character, and if you lose a round as a character you have to stop playing that character until the end of the thing, and it's like, you're gonna stop me from playing a character I like? That doesn't make any sense.
Or a character that I purchased a skin for or whatever that now I can't use.
It's a lot of like just structural systems that were kind of baffling and seemed to, at least to me in hindsight, you know, being what it is, seemed to me to like be obviously a mistake, but apparently it wasn't a mistake to them. There are tons of stories about a bunch of toxic positivity at the studio and certain leaders being like, you're absolutely never allowed to say anything bad to anybody else. And so it's just a bunch of yes happening. And that, you know, whenever you're in a creative environment, saying yes to everyone's idea is definitely the route to go. But I think like the biggest reason why Concord is on this list and has a 62 is just like the failure of it. I mean, it is inarguably the biggest failure in the history of video games. It has 0 peers. This game allegedly cost like over $400 million to make, including the purchase of Firewalk Studios.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which that studio has since been shut down. Like they're not being reassigned. They're not moving on. They're not even like Bungie style avoiding layoffs by shunting people around internally into Sony studios. They just fucking fired everybody there. It's insane.
Yeah, they went nuclear.
But at the end of the day, I don't think it's that horrendously bad of a video game.
No.
Certainly was not good. Certainly was not a game that I would have even played if it was free. But that's also my style, and my interests don't align to this game.
Correct.
I think the marketing hurt this game because it seemed like Walmart Guardians of the Galaxy, which I think we actually talked about when they first put the trailer out.
We did.
And then like just a lot of the character designs, even beyond those characters they showed in the trailer, are just like, they felt kind of AI generated. Yeah. They just seemed super generic and just weird, ugly color combinations. Yeah. Yeah, it was just like so many weird decisions were made. Their whole promise of we're going to launch weekly story cutscenes, like those are expensive to make. I don't know how. It's again, it feels amateurish from a leadership perspective to not be like, we can't execute this. Right. Like it's. And where does Sony play a part in this too? Like where is the Sony leadership coming in to be like, guys, You can't do that. Like, it's too expensive. It's too many resources,
Well,
whatever.
That would have been Jim Ryan, and we all know how
fair
fucking
enough.
checked out he was.
I mean, I think he was one of the guys, or no, it was Herman Hulst, the guy who now runs PlayStation Studios. He was the one championing Firewalk and wanting to purchase them.
Great.
So,
okay.
I mean, Herman Hulst was the heir apparent to Jim Ryan. It was like his protege. So,
right. Well, because I know Jim Ryan's big push was live service, and so I know they were looking for those kinds of acquisitions because Sony needed that big COD killer. Right. And Concord ain't it, bruv.
I mean, there isn't one. I think, if anything, we've learned that there isn't one.
Correct.
Nor is there a Fortnite killer.
No.
So I don't think Concord is
like they're putting. Sorry, this is like this is like a brand new thing that just it breaks my brain. Fortnite is just Roblox now because like they're making Counter-Strike in Fortnite. Did you see this?
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like
there's Lego in there. There's
shooter.
Rock Band in there.
Now, and like the Lego thing is getting like a social role playing hub. It's just a fucking. It is my worst nightmare, but a lot of other people's like utopia. So good on them. But
you don't need to play any other games.
Yeah, exactly. Concord, like it was never going to be able to break into the space. It was doomed to fail from the start. And I'm surprised more people weren't able to see that. Or I guess people were
internally.
Right, yes.
Every gamer saw it coming.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's why like 5,000 people played the beta. There was a closed beta that they couldn't fill, so they had to open it up to everyone.
Right.
Guys, delay the game. Change your business model. What are we doing here?
Right.
So yeah, Concord is certainly not one of the 3 worst games. It's an unfortunate story and an unfortunate, colossally huge L that Sony took in 2023. And, positive vibes got to everybody at the studio. I'm sure there are a lot of talented folks there that worked very hard. Their product just was not what people wanted.
I don't know, man. Positive vibes might have been what killed Concord.
Yeah. The wokeness is certainly what killed it.
The lack of negative feedback.
Yeah, it had like a fat black woman in it
now. So
that's woke. You think I want to play a game with a fat black woman character? Come on, bro.
I do.
If I don't want to have sex with the female characters, what are we even doing here? Moving on to Dragon Age Veilguard. No more woke DEI bullshit. So this game was developed by BioWare, published by EA. It has a Metacritic of 82.
Yeah.
This is, man, I had a journey.
Yeah, 82 is too high. It's not like way too high, but it is too high.
No, all right. It depends on your context of what way too high means. To me, Veilguard is a 6 out of 10.
But in Metacritic terms, that's like a 70 to 74
you're
kind
right.
of thing.
You're right. That's another like revelation I had when going through this process, looking at like Metascores from 1997 or 2000 or whatever. You're getting like 45s, 51s. Nothing is scored that low anymore. Yeah. Like the lowest you're gonna see is like a 60. It's just it's lame, frankly. Like games don't get bad scores anymore. I don't know if it's publisher relationships, if it's just they don't want to piss off people that are fans. It just feels like games are actually scored on a 6 to 10 mark, not a 0 to 10 mark, and it takes something that like literally doesn't work. Like if a game comes out that you can't even load on your Xbox, it just like lights it on fire. IGN's like 4 out of 10. And then people get mad and like, that's bullshit. It should be a 6. Like everything is fucking broken when it comes to review scores. So that's why when you're like, oh, it's not an 82, but it's not, I'm like, honestly, Metacritic is so useless these days. Yeah. I just don't care anymore about review scores. They're stupid. Much like Dragon Age: The Veilguard. I just think it's a stupid game.
It is pretty stupid.
So like, okay, they announced it, I don't know, 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And I was like, hey, this idea sounds cool. Solus was a great character. He broke bad. He's going to be an awesome villain. It was called the Dreadwolf, which is a badass name.
It's a great name.
And then they re-revealed it with this like character trailer where they rebranded it as the Veilguard. And that character trailer maybe didn't go over so hot because it was cringe as fuck.
Yeah.
And it was like a bunch of 14-year-olds cosplaying as Dragon Age characters with like a very Fortnite aesthetic to it.
Yeah.
Like Pixar style animation, and everything was bright purple and teal colored, which are like our gamers' favorite colors, purple and teal.
Because their favorite gamer chairs come in those colors.
Yeah. My RGB keyboard is permanently locked on neon violet.
Yeah.
So after that character re-reveal, they did like a big gameplay deep dive maybe a week later because they were trying to do some damage control over that character reveal trailer. And their gameplay looked fucking horrendous. It was from the first mission of the game, admittedly, but it looked extremely boring and flashy, but with like zero substance. Right. You didn't have direct control, or at least not much direct control over your other party members. And it also did not go over well for me personally.
Right.
Then maybe, several months later, as we're getting closer to launch, the game starts making the rounds for actual like big time preview coverage from the IGNs of the world, other YouTubers, a lot of YouTubers that I enjoy. And the vibe from those was like, wait a minute, this is actually pretty fun. Right. The combat's hitting. The writing is a lot better than it kind of seemed like it was. It kind of feels like old school BioWare, just with way more action-y combat than they've been able to execute in recent releases. And everybody takes that with a grain of salt because we saw the shit from earlier on. And also preview coverage is always going to be a really specific vertical slice that's always going to show the game in its best light. But still,
and
the vibes were like
they pick and choose who gets to see the preview coverage. And like, so they get to like kind of create their own little positive pocket of feedback.
Yeah, but not so much with like the big games publishers, like Games Media. Pretty much everybody got their own stuff there. If you're talking about like individual influence and stuff, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
But I mean, like the big places all covered it too, and they generally had pretty positive things to say about it. And so I was like, okay, yeah, maybe. I mean, I haven't had a good impression of this thus far, but even people I trust, not like the IGNs, but like the YouTubers that I trust are saying it was pretty fun. And that's good enough for me to at least like pique my interest. And then the game came out, and then pretty much all of the big games media people were like, BioWare's back, baby. 9 out of 10s, 10 out of 10s. This game is absolutely fucking amazing. But a lot of the individual YouTubers that I personally like were like, this game's bad. I don't know what everyone's talking about. This game is quite bad. And so I was like, okay, I trust like my boy Skill Up way more than I trust fucking GameSpot. This is a no from me. And then this dude named Kyle and his dummy friend named Cody started playing it, and we're like, yo, Shay, this game's actually kind of okay. Like, it's not the best game of the year, but it's pretty fun.
I was like, okay, dude, fine. I have to interject and do slight course corrections here. Cody started playing it, was very hot on it, and was like, this game is really awesome. I'm loving it. And I was like, well, it's sitting on my shelf right now, so I may as well pop it in and play it so I can talk about it during Game of the Year stuff, which is what we're doing right now. And early going, because my expectations were so low, I was like, actually, like the stuff with Varric and Harding is really good, and this other elf chick, Balara, she's kind of annoying, but whatever. But the core people that are part of the group are actually pretty good. I'm enjoying that stuff. It's nostalgic. It's hitting the right notes. It looks really nice. All the character creator stuff is great. The choices and dialogue and delivery that I'm able to do with my player character is really impressive. Visually super impressive. Like with the animations and lighting and stuff, it looked really nice. And I was like kind of getting into the flow of it. The combat, I was playing as a mage. I was like unlocking new abilities and spells and stuff and trying to like hone in on an area of focus. And I was like, okay, yeah. And so that's why I was high on it. And then all the other characters came along, and I realized no other characters are actually interesting or written well.
Yeah, but you had told me to get it before that second part happened.
Correct.
Before the shoe drop.
Correct.
Because you said the game was sitting on your shelf, ignored, and then Cody said, Kyle, you should play it, and so you did.
Yeah.
My copy of the game was also sitting on a shelf, but that shelf was at Target. and then you told me to play it, and so I went and bought it afterwards.
It starts kind of strong. It started strong for me.
No.
For me.
No. It doesn't
Yes.
start strong. I mean, yes, it started strong for you. I'm saying it did not start strong for me.
Right.
I disliked it from the jump. I totally agree that the character creator is fantastic. I personally, and it's totally a preference, do not at all enjoy the visual style. I think from a fidelity perspective, it's fantastic.
Yes, that's what
bright.
I do not enjoy the aesthetic.
The color saturation is great.
Yeah.
But the actual style of the graphics, I hate.
That I
hate
do
the character
not like
designs.
It's like a it's like a
animate
barely
horribly.
elevated like mobile fantasy game aesthetic.
Yeah, dude. They all have Ubisoft face. Like, they all look dead in the eyes. I also totally disagree on the dialogue choices. I feel like the choices that I feel like I'm playing Fallout 4 before mods, where like I choose something and then what my dude says is different than what I chose. And usually what he says is it's so fucking toothless. Like, I started picking the meanest answers I could just because I was like, come on, man. Like, let me have a personality.
I was trying to do
I would
all
pick
the
a mean
jokey
choice.
stuff. I thought the jokey stuff all landed really well. I guess I didn't do a lot of the mean choice stuff.
I just find a lot of the dialogue to be so like, I don't know. It feels very high school. Like, everyone's like being overly nice and fake to each other.
That was my main problem. Is it felt like, God, what was the Magic Parkour game? That was like
Immortals of Aveum.
No. Immortals of Aveum was the first person shooter one. Forspoken. Fuck you for putting that name back in my brain. But the writing feels, it's definitely not as bad as Forspoken, but it feels like it comes from the same place.
Yeah, I mean, I find it cringe, not in like, well, that just happened, which is like what Forspoken was doing. I find it cringe just because it's like, it's just boring, immature dialogue. It's like teenagers talking to each other.
Right.
That's what it feels
like.
And
these are grown-ass
like none of
people.
them. Yeah, like none of them are actually in touch with their emotions, so they're just like forcing it and faking it. It's just we're talking too much about the Veilguard because it's not going to move on. It's not one of the 3 worst games. I'm like extra annoyed because of the roller coaster I had leading up to it and genuine hope that like I might get something out of it. And all of this to say, I think the combat is fine. I don't think it's like particularly interesting. It is totally fine. Anyone, like, I've seen so many people out there like the whole like setting up and detonating the powers and stuff is so cool.
Motherfucker,
like,
play Mass Effect, idiot.
Yeah, like Mass Effect 2 had that, and that was like 12 years ago. Why are we treating this like it's such a cool system? It works worse in this game than it did in Mass Effect 2.
Yeah, it is less clear.
Yeah, like to me, like it is donezo. Like hearing people talk about Veilguard, I was like, okay, if this game is even just okay, I might have some hope for the new Mass Effect because it's a series that BioWare holds so dear and they missed so hard with Andromeda that you just know they're going to work their asses off on Mass Effect 5. All Veilguard had to do was be okay, and I would have been excited for the next Mass Effect. But this is my Starfield. It is over. OVER for BioWare. It is done. They are incapable of making good video games. Period. And it's fucking depressing. As someone who just replayed KOTOR, is replaying Dragon Age Origins, like either your studio gets shut down via acquisition or it lives long enough to become the villain. Is that how the saying goes? Like that's how it feels.
Yeah. Totally.
So yeah, Veilguard's not moving on, but it's a game that pisses me off because of what it represents. And we're going to talk about another one of those right now.
Another game that you and I have a lot of problems with is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. This is just for the PS5, developed by Square Enix Creative Business Unit 1 and published by Square Enix with a Metacritic...
The number 1 unit.
Yeah.
It's their top unit.
Their top unit. The Metacritic score of 92. There are a lot of
92 is insane.
92 is
insane. I don't care if you like this game or not. It is 92 is insane, bro.
Because even the people who love this game, there are so many caveats to it that they will admit to. But they're like, oh, but the highs are so high that 92. It's like fucking what?
92 is crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. There are a lot of things to love about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I'm going to set this aside because that's not this podcast. We're going to talk about all the things that are wrong with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And I know wrong is like an objective statement, and what we're talking about is subjective. I'm going to stick with the word wrong.
It's just you and me, bro.
Yeah.
You don't got to talk fancy for anybody else.
That's
Look, who else is on this podcast?
That's true.
Our voices are the only ones that matter, man.
Man, if a third
It's
person chimed in
true.
right now, I'd be real spooked.
If anyone else's opinions matter, they would be doing their own podcast, and no one is. We're the only straight white men that have a podcast.
The only podcast on the internet.
Yeah,
the only reason the internet exists. So all right, problems with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Open world bloat is the number one. It's the number one initial problem with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I think that problem becomes supplanted later on in the game by its horrible storytelling and narrative. Well, that's not true. It's not horrible storytelling. It's just a horrible story. But period. The open world bloat is a huge problem because... there are they do some accessibility things around difficulty where you can have difficulty scale or have it be set depending on how you want to grind or feel that power fantasy or whatever. I don't like scaling difficulty because I like to have a power fantasy, so I'd prefer to grind. However, the experience that you get, you can't grind like a typical JRPG where you do battles over and over and over. You can do that, but the amount of XP you get is so small. So the real XP you get from the real XP gain is from doing all of the side quests, which are just the most fucking banal, mindless, boring bullshit.
It's like Ubisoft 2012 era.
So boring and bad.
Yeah.
And most of it is given to you by the worst character in a Final Fantasy game, the motherfucking Jar Jar of Final Fantasy VII, fucking Chadley. That piece of shit. Oh my god. Like,
here's a little
if I could
erase
him from my brain, I think I might turn out okay in the end. As it stands, with Chadley rattling around in my synapses, I think at some point I'm gonna snap.
Kyle, we might need to add a worst character list to our Game of the Year deliberations, which we will talk about more at the end of this podcast.
That's a good idea.
We have a bunch of categories. We might want to do a worst character. I think that would be fun.
I think that would be a good one to replace the one that we didn't like.
Yes. Because Chadley sucks fucking ass.
Dude.
He's puckered up. He's intentionally dehydrated and deoxygenated himself so he can like extract the maximum amount of gas from an ass. I hate him so much.
I hate Chadley. Oh man, there's no one like I hate him so much it doesn't bring me pleasure to hate him.
No.
Ugh.
I had successfully suppressed him from my memory until I was going through the notes on this podcast and just saw the word. Like, we keep bullet points to just help jog our memories of the things we want to talk about for each game. And one bullet point just says Chadley. And it's lowercase also, which feels like...
I didn't bother capitalizing
it. Feels intentional because, like, in the Google Doc, it should automatically capitalize the first word of each bullet point. And it didn't for whatever reason. And it was correct because Chadley doesn't deserve to have his name capitalized.
He's not a proper noun. He's just a noun.
The craziest Chadley notwithstanding, the craziest thing about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is like, if it wasn't for the open world shit, I would have kept playing.
Me too.
100%. I was not affected by the story not being interesting or like the characters being like cringe anime over the top bullshit, because that's always been Final Fantasy. Correct. It's not my thing. But like, I'm there for the wackiness of the story,
right,
and the insanity of the story.
There wasn't that much of the fun, wacky stuff in this one either.
I disagree.
They hit a lot of it on the side.
Yeah. I think that there's a good amount of wackiness in this game. Oh. And I know there's a lot more later on. When you get to the golden saucer,
right,
like I know there's a ton of wacky shit that happens there. Yeah. To me, it was just the open world stuff. It was just so boring.
Yeah, dude.
And it was compounded by the combat, which I really didn't like. But
me neither.
If I could just streamline and mainline that game, the combat would have bothered me way less.
Correct.
It's just that you have to do so much of it because of the open world bloat.
100%.
That's what makes the combat worse.
Yes.
So it's like, yes, I didn't like the writing. Yes, I didn't like the combat, but the open world structure was the thing that ruined this game for me. And that like is extra disappointing.
Yeah.
Because if they would have it was such an unforced error, because the first game wasn't like that. The first game was way more straightforward, and it was awesome for that. That was one of my favorite games of the year when it came out. In this game, I put in 15-ish hours. I didn't even get out of the first big zone because I was doing everything because I felt like I had to. And I was just like, no, man, I can't keep doing it. I'm not having any fun.
Right. And like, they hide all the good shit behind you doing all of that side stuff. And so like,
yes,
to feel, because they need to make players feel rewarded for spending the time, but instead they could have just like, they didn't have to do all that side stuff. They could have just given you the good shit. Like as you go along through the story, and you would have still felt just as great about it. You would have felt better because you would have been enjoying the game instead of miserably slogging through it. Yeah. Ugh. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth
it's tough.
Makes me angry.
Like, yeah, I don't think this game moves on, but it does get tough. Like when I think about Final Fantasy VII and when I think about Veilguard, like those two games make me more angry.
Yeah.
Than the vast majority of games on this list because of what they should have been compared to what they are.
Because it's just like, you look at it from the outside, obviously. Like you look at it from the outside and you just go, how did you not know? Like, how did you not know that this isn't what we want?
I mean, but it was what plenty of other people wanted. That's the saddest part.
Well, they're lying
Rebirth
to themselves.
Nominated for game of the year.
I don't believe it. They're fucking lying to themselves.
No, I don't think so.
Maybe other people are just happier than we are.
Yeah, I mean,
and
that's
their tolerance for bad is much higher.
I think the bigger thing is a lot of people enjoy the combat, which is just a taste difference. And enjoying the combat and enjoying the insanity of the story is enough to overcome the open world. Like,
right.
You will not find hardly anyone that will defend the open world content in that game.
No.
It's purely an argument that, like, yeah, it's not good, but the rest of the game is so great, I'm okay with it. And that I think is totally fine. It's just for us, the writing and the combat weren't good. So they didn't overcome the open world stuff.
Yeah. I also
the music's awesome though.
I feel like most of the critics who are really into Final Fantasy that I listen to did not like the ending at all. Like they had issues with the open world and really felt like the ending fell flat for them because it was much too convoluted and up its own ass, and Chad Lee sucking on that ass. And it's just like how 92, how with like those are big problems.
I'm with you.
But yeah, it doesn't have to stick around because like I said, there are a lot of things to love about Rebirth. And we'll talk about, Rebirth will be in at least one of our other categories for the positive things.
Sure.
We'll talk about it then, but
I don't know that there are a lot of things to love about it. There are definitely a couple of things to love about it. I don't know that I would say there are a lot of things.
I think there are a lot in terms of number, but if you're going categories of things that are good, I agree. There's a couple categories of things that are good.
Sure.
All right. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, not moving along. Next one, Flintlock, The Siege of Dawn. On PlayStation 5, Xbox, PC, the various Xboxes. Developed by A44 Games and published by Kepler Interactive. This is a Metacritic of 70. This is that Souls-like game that came out that I played a Next Fest demo of it and was kind of like somewhat sold on it. I was like, honestly, it's a little stiff, but the level design doesn't seem terrible in this opening area. The story's not amazing. Technically, it's not incredible, but like there's something there that is interesting to me that I feel like I'm ready for a game like this right now. So I got it when it came out.
It's more of like a Bloodborne like.
More of a Bloodborne,
because like
yes.
with the gun kind of staggers and that kind of thing. It doesn't even have a mechanic where if you get hit and then hit back, like you can recover some of your health, or am I misremembering?
That I don't remember specifically.
Okay.
But so I got the game, played through that opening sequence, was like, okay, yeah, cool, and then went on to like the next big area, and just the level design doesn't hold up. It's not good. The level design's pretty terrible. It's labyrinthine, but not in a sensible way, and not in a way that feels rewarding for discovering it, like a Souls level design is. So you are unlocking shortcuts and stuff, but it just. Maybe it had to do with the art style too. Like it felt pretty homogenized in that first area. Like it just didn't have a good sense of place. And there's a lot of issues with geometry when fighting and stuff, which frankly the Souls games have too. But like that jank is almost endearing there, and here it was not, because it didn't feel like they earned that forgiveness. Like the animations are also like really stylized and kind of like anachronistic to the like the really gritty sort of like kind of fantasy Civil War era setting. It's really hard to get used to like reading attack animations and even your own animations, because they are so wild and feel a little unpredictable. I also think like the enemy reactions to your attacks are inconsistent. Like that's the thing that I feel like the Souls games do really well, is they're very methodical and consistent about how enemies will react to certain attacks in certain positions, and you can really learn patterns. This I had a really hard time getting to grips with patterns, and I think a lot of that had to do with inconsistent enemy reactions on hits and stuff. Okay. And like it has its own kind of version of that Souls-like language, right, with its kind of mishmash of mechanics and stuff, but it's just not a clear vision, because like sometimes it follows genre conventions, other times it doesn't. And when it doesn't, it's not doing a good job at like explaining or tutorializing those things, like how you're traveling between locations and how the like flask equivalents work and how you're upgrading stuff. And like none of that stuff feels the same as a Souls-like and is explained very well. So that it exists in this weird nebulous space where it was like, it's strange because it's definitely developed with the knowledge that Souls games are successful and exist, and that is why this game was made in that way. But then it goes out of its way to ignore those conventions sometimes, what feels like just for the hell of it, for the sake of being different, but then not, like I said, tutorializing or explaining in a way that made sense. And again, not Souls games are unnecessarily obfuscated in a charming way. It's like part of the mystique of it for people who like that. It is a charming thing. It did not have that same kind of like mystery or that same kind of effect. I think just like the levels of polish are much lower than a FromSoft game. And so it doesn't feel like it earns its stripes and the ability to get away with the things it's trying to get away with. That's me playing like 3 hours of it.
Sure. I mean, that's enough
for me, that's enough.
Know whether or not you like it. Yeah. I know, because I remember I'm not a Souls-like person at all. And I remember seeing this and being like, oh, this looks kind of interesting. And then you had played the demo and liked it. And I was like, okay, it's coming to Game Pass. I should probably check this out. And then I know, I think it was Jake Baldino at Game Ranks did a video on it where he wasn't huge on it, but he was like, hey, I'm not a big Souls-like person. It's like, Elden Ring hit for me, and I hadn't really liked a Souls game before that. A lot of people have really loved Another Crab's Treasure and hadn't really liked Souls-likes. Like, you just have to try them, and eventually you might find one that just clicks with you.
Right.
And I was like, oh, okay, that's a really interesting perspective. I might go check this out, even though I don't like Souls-like stuff. Kyle liked the demo. It seems like the reviews are kind of mediocre, but that doesn't mean that I might not like it. And then you played more of it, and you were like, yeah, don't bother playing this.
Right.
So I never did.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sort of that, it falls in the same space as the original Lords of the Fallen.
Yeah. It's just a mediocre
honestly,
one of
frankly,
those.
the new Lords of the Fallen as well.
Yeah,
Yeesh. But yeah, it is a mediocre one of those that is very much trying to emulate the form, but without the understanding of and mastery of the form.
Yeah, it's like there have been a lot of Souls-like games, especially recently, that have succeeded at both imitating the FromSoft style as well as like adding their own flair to it. Like Lies of P, or like what was the one, Black Myth Wukong from this year, even Stellar Blade to a certain extent. Those like really I guess a lot of those are more arcadey style, but I feel like there are a lot more games that are doing the Souls-like thing well compared to the original Lords of the Fallen, right? And Flintlock seems like it's a bit of a character from a bygone era of just the era where everybody wanted to make a Souls-like, and so people were willing to play bad versions of it because they just wanted more Souls-likes. And we've moved past that now, because now there are high quality ones where Flintlock kind of stands out like a sore thumb.
100%.
That's a shame.
Yeah, like, that being said, I know we have not kept a game yet. I do not have the passion. I don't think Flintlock sucks enough. You know what I mean? It's like almost there. I don't know that it sucks enough. Because we have
We're getting down to it.
No, but we have some massive ass stinkers coming up.
You're right.
In the back half.
You're right,
we
do.
We're ass loaded on this podcast. So
the caboose.
Yeah, if only we did
Stinky caboose
episode titles for these. Ass loaded would be pretty good.
All right, well, let's move on to the next one. We're running long, so I can cover this one relatively quickly because neither of us played it. It's Foamstars, developed by Toy Logic and published by Square Enix. It has a Metacritic of 57.
A rare sub 60.
My note on this game is, remember this game?
Barely.
I had pitched this as a game club game for the flagship podcast to Kyle, and Kyle's response was, "I'm not playing that shit."
Yeah, I refuse.
And like that's reasonable, actually.
It's totally reasonable.
And look, I didn't propose it because I thought it was going to be good. I proposed it because I thought we might have some like fun with how bad it is, because it looked bad from the jump. I mean, they straight ripped from Splatoon.
Yeah.
Although they added, like, in this game, the foam, because you're
spewing foam.
Shooting just dumping loads of foam all over the competition. But that foam can build up. If you got enough foam and you drop a big enough load, you can, like, make a wall of foam to hide behind. Yeah. Which is actually like a decently interesting mechanic. I think the biggest issue was no one asked for this game. And really that's kind of where it falls apart, right? Like, if no one wants a game that you make, it's usually pretty hard to break through with that context. I also think that like their approach to monetization was really shitty, per usual, and they had like a bunch of random characters that they tried to hype up, and that just super didn't work. I think people were... By people, I can only speak for myself, but also what I saw from the gamer community is people being like, yeah, these characters are super cringe, because it's very much leaning in a like anime cyberpunk aesthetic, but it has like really kiddie Fortnite-y kind of character designs, and that true gamers think that shit is for babies. So yeah, Foamstars, I think, again, was a huge failure, although it's still live, bro. Foamstars lasted longer than Concord did.
Well, almost everything lasted longer than Concord did. But yeah, Foamstars is about to shut down. I think I got an email from Square Enix that said, "Hey, get your foam in while you can get it, man."
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not gonna
vacuum, suck up that foam. Let's get Chadley in there. He can suck up the phone. But yeah, Foamstars, by all accounts, a really not fun game. Neither of us played it, so I wouldn't push for it. It is interesting that we've got several games on this list of games that came out in 2024 that by the time you're listening to this podcast, you probably can't play anymore.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Wild.
That's crazy.
On to the next stinker.
Yeah, Funko Fusion. It came out on all the stuff. It was developed by 1010 Games and published by them. A Metacritic of 54. I believe that is
that the lowest?
That is the lowest one. Yes. Possibly deservedly so, because this is it's just a real fucking mess. It's extremely buggy. It rips mechanic ideas from other games and other genres and just does really poor implementations of them. It's also it's one of those things where it doesn't know what its audience is, because, Funko Pops, like you said with Foamstars, right? Like, that kind of character design is a little more kid-friendly. Also, mechanically, it's a little more simple, so it might be geared towards a more junior audience. But a lot of the IPs that are in it are more, like, adult-themed. Like, they have Hot Fuzz and The Thing in there. So it just kind of, like, didn't feel like it knew what its audience was going to be.
And also, like, Funko Pops isn't really a kid thing. Like, I feel like Funko Pops got popular when we were, like, high school, college age.
Right.
But it feels like they're more collector's items now than they are, like... People aren't buying Funko Pops for, like, kids' toys.
No.
They're collector things.
Right.
So, yeah, it just seems like a weird strategy to take a property that is primarily aimed at, like, millennial age people... and IP that is primarily aimed at millennial age people, but making the gameplay of your video games targeting kids.
Yeah, it's like
that seems very weird.
Very weird. Also, like, the game, it just looks like ass. Like, all the UI, elements are insanely archaic and terrible, like early Dynasty Warriors shit. The game also. So, if we look at other examples of franchises that handle IPs like Lego, Telltale. They at least have a take, right? Like a vision for how to tackle that IP and, like, have a version of it that is interesting. Like, they're, like, in tackling the IPs, they have some form of commentary built in based on how they tackle them. This game doesn't really have any of that. It's just, like, rehashing famous moments from movies and sequences from the movies or the IPs. Because like the Lego games, they're making light of various conflicts and interrelationships and stuff between characters and all that.
Yeah, there's a lot of, like, fourth wall breaking.
Totally. This game's not doing any of that shit. It's just, like, the most low effort, which, I mean, go figure. But it's, like, just the most low effort spin on it. Another fun note, there are no checkpoints inside of the chapters of the game. So, like, if you encounter a progress blocking bug, which happen all the time, you have to start the whole chapter over again, even if you're at the end.
Sick.
It's like, that's a fun little wrinkle in there too. But yeah, it's like, not only is the game terrible and runs poorly and is poorly conceived and doesn't know its audience, but it's also just, like, broken as fuck.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, this just reeks of cash grab.
Totally. And I'm gonna move it up onto the short list because I think this game is really fucking rotten and terrible.
Yeah, like, as a game that neither of us played, I remember seeing trailers for this and being like, this game's gonna suck.
I had more of a visceral reaction to this than I did Gears Pop.
Oh, sure.
Like, that made me angry. This was, like, baffling.
Yes. When we were putting together our long list for this podcast, Funko Fusion was one of the first games that came to mind, and I didn't even play it. Yeah. That speaks to how bad it looked.
Yeah, for sure. Everywhere it showed terribly. All right, moving on to the next one. Kong Survivor Instinct. We are yet again blessed by another Kong video game on the games that suck list. This came out for PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X because only the most powerful of hardware could possibly run this monster.
Of course.
Developed by 7 Levels, published by Legendary Entertainment with a Metacritic of 57. It is... All right. okay, well, you've already seen the bullet points, but Kong Survivor Instinct, what kind of video game do you think this is?
I'm going to put on, I mean, I already knew, I remember seeing trailers for this game, but I'm going to put on my ignorant hat, which I wear most of the day.
Okay.
In my regular life. If I hear that a video game has the name Kong in it, I'm going to assume that I'm playing as King Kong.
Okay.
Because why would you make a King Kong video game where you don't play as King Kong?
Well, I would also wonder the same thing. Unfortunately, the developers of Kong Survivor Instinct did not ask themselves that same question.
No, they did. They just decided,
actually.
Let's go against that trend.
This is a side-scrolling Metroidvania-like, where you play as just a normal person trying to make it through like an urban setting while Kong and other kaiju are like battling it out in the background.
Is he like a guy in one of the movies? Is he a character?
I don't know that much. Let's look at.
So I'm watching
the fandom article for this game because it doesn't have a Wikipedia page.
It doesn't even have a Wikipedia page. Yeah, I'm watching the movies right now because I don't know why. I mean, I don't recognize any of these names.
Alan Jonah is probably
Alan Jonah. That sounds like a made-up character name.
Yeah. Play as a father desperate to find his missing daughter, while titans such as Kong and Abaddon get in his way of finding his daughter.
Fucking Tywin Lannister plays him, so he's in the 2019 movie of Godzilla.
Wow. Okay.
David Martin looks like, yes, he is a character made for the game. That must be who you play as?
Okay, that makes sense.
David Martin, and then his wife daughter Stacey Martin,
and then
Omisha Bhatt is also a video game character.
Okay, wow.
They
have
be
one
their
tie-in. Yeah, they got that from the license holders at least. Most of the time, like, your only interaction with Kong is him like beating up other kaiju in the background, and occasionally he'll like come into the foreground and start fucking shit up. He's like making stuff shake and fall and creating or clearing obstacles for you. It's mostly like a MacGuffin to propel you through.
Right.
The combat, super simplistic. There's not a whole lot to the game. It's mostly platforming. It actually looks kind of nice, like from a fidelity standpoint, but the animations are awful. And also, the writing and voice acting is terrible. I encourage people to look up a video of Kong Survivor Instinct because the voice acting and writing are like legendarily bad, which makes sense because it's published by Legendary Entertainment. This game fucking blows, and I think it's really funny that we got another extremely bad Kong video game a second year in a row.
Yes.
From a totally different source. They just can't seem to figure out how to license this IP in a way that makes sense. So I'd like to keep Kong Survival Instinct around.
Okay.
Wait, Survival or Survivor? Survivor Instinct.
Survivor.
Yes.
Because you play as a survivor.
Right.
I just think it's very odd that it has Kong in the main title when like he's fighting a bunch of the other kaiju.
Yeah, it could be.
They talk about Godzilla also.
Yeah.
And like this is canon in the Monsterverse.
Right.
Like alongside the movies, and I think they're doing TV shows now. They've got like comic books and shit that are all part of this like Kong Godzilla Monsterverse. So like this is canon.
Dude, David Martin's gonna get his own comics. Just you wait and see.
It's weird. It's a weird thing. But they must be making tons of fucking money on it, or they wouldn't be doing it.
I guess. I will say, in defense of this game versus Kong Skull Island last year, this game I think at least works most of the time. So there's that.
Okay. This is the 5th video game in the Monsterverse series.
Amazing.
It follows Godzilla Smash 3, which I'm going to assume is a mobile game.
Yeah, probably.
Yes, it is a puzzle game. Godzilla Strike Zone. Oh, a survival horror game for mobile. Oh, that you can no longer purchase. Okay.
Incredible.
Came out came out in 2014. Godzilla Crisis Defense, which also sounds like a mobile game. Okay, PC game. As of 2021, it is no longer free to play.
Amazing.
All right. Homepage instead loading to the movie. If you go to the website, it just redirects you to like movie promo.
I love that.
Love it. And then Godzilla X Kong Titan Chasers.
Wait, so you're telling me that Kong Skull Island wasn't even part of the Monsterverse?
No. Not canon, bro.
What the fuck?
Not at all.
All the drama around Kong's mom and dad dying to the T-Rex thing?
Fanfic.
Wow. I've been lied to.
EU. It's part of the Monsterverse EU.
It's the Monsterverse Legends.
Monsterverse multiverse.
Holy shit. All right. Kong, welcome to the club. Next up is Slitterhead. This came out on PS4, PS5, Xbox Series X and S, developed by Bokeh Game Studio, published by them. Metacritic of 62. This is Shinji Mikami's latest game of Resident Evil 4 and Evil Within 1 and 2 fame, Shinji Mikami. My main man. This game fucking is bad, dude.
It looked bad.
It had a really interesting teaser trailer when it was first announced that was like CG and like body horror-y and all fucked up.
Yeah.
And then actual gameplay was shown, and I'm not going to say it looks as bad as Funko Fusion, because that would be crazy. But it doesn't look a lot better than Funko Fusion. From a fidelity standpoint, it just looks like ass. Like, the animations are terrible. It's also kind of a misguided attempt at this concept, which the concept is there are these like demonic entities or parasitic demonic entities that can take over people's bodies and make them do crimes. Really terrible, awful crimes. And you are...
Now I'm just picturing this like demonic thing possessing you and be like,
give me your wallet.
Steal that Kit Kat from the store. Don't tip on your haircut. So evil.
I really get off on these petty crimes. The petty crime demon. No, it's like murder and bad stuff. But
petty crime.
Yeah, right. Yeah. If the murder victim's name is Petty. The game it follows. So it's also a time loop game where it takes place over 3 days, a la Majora's Mask, where you are attempting to like track down. It's sort of like a little bit of like a detective element where you're trying to. You also have the same power as these demonic entities. You are possessing people and using them as like vessels to find those demonic entities, track them down, and defeat them. And then the time loops, you get like a bunch of exposition, and then you get info on like, a new track to follow, kind of a thing. And that's the structure, is you do that several times over.
Okay.
So that's the flow. Linearly trace possessors through a 3-day time loop, find one and defeat it, get a big exposition dump, and then repeat that over and over again until the game's done, including like the same kind of locations. It mostly all takes place in like this like weird surrealist version of a Japanese city, so it's like a lot of the same environment over and over again as well. So not only is it like the same days, it's also the same environments and the same gameplay flow over and over. It never really iterates beyond that. It doesn't ever like shake up that structure of the experience, is what I have read / skimmed through videos and stuff. Technically, animations are super stiff. Fidelity is at a pretty low level. It looks like a mid-generation PS3 game. It really does not look very good. There's a lot of combat in it. Like, it is at its core, like the other part of the gameplay loop is the combat where you're fighting the creatures and defeating them. And it like has some interesting ideas around like the powers manifesting as weapons and stuff.
Yeah,
like body parts manifesting as weapons.
It seemed like it had some like old school like Devil May Cry energy to the boss battles.
Yeah,
Like it was just kind of like really weird random weapons and a lot of like over the top arcadey kind of stuff. It's not like you're not jumping around the levels and doing QTEs and stuff, but it just it had the combat looked very mismatched from the rest of the game's aesthetic.
Very much so, yes. I also like the exposition dumps. The writing really struggles to like get the story across in an interesting way. I think because a lot of it happens in those like dumps of information, you're not getting much of it throughout the course of the gameplay. And like that's part of the problem of this game is an archaic structure where all of the vertical slices are siphoned away from each other. It's like you're doing a thing for a pocket of time, and then you are doing another thing for a pocket of time, and then another thing. They're not blending these mechanics in a way that they like interact in like a satisfying or interesting way. It's also like, for me personally, I have such a deep affection for Shinji Mikami's work in the past that to like see him do this, like I'm happy he got a chance to do his own thing outside of this like larger corporate structure. Like this is his studio, he's getting to do this thing. I think that's awesome. It just makes me sad because like it is a game with horror themes, and I was like initially interested based on that CG teaser. But then like to see the product that came out of it be so amateurish was really surprising. And like it doesn't seem like it's the least bit scary, like in its tone. It's like overly stylized visuals and combat. It was just really, really disappointing for me.
Yeah, you have to imagine that the budget is vastly
totally
different than what he's used to working with.
Yes.
Because it does not come across like a AAA game.
No.
It does not really come across like a AA game.
Agreed. It like, to see his name on a project like this is shocking to me.
Yeah.
It does not, like, definitely there are threads throughout of like weird horror elements that like kind of make sense, like a Shinji Mikami, like some of the creature design and stuff. Like you can see like, oh yeah, there's some body horror stuff like he's always kind of done in his games. It's like there's like connections there, but just in the quality of the product that came out, it is in no way representative of what I've come to associate with him and his games. So super.
I also think it has one of the worst names of any video game this year.
Yeah.
Slitterhead is a stupid ass 1978 horror movie name.
Yeah, like a grindhouse.
Sounds very dumb.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I mean, what do you think? I mean, it sounds like the disappointment level was pretty high.
Yeah.
But do you think it's a bottom 3 candidate? The only thing I'll say, because coming off of Funko Fusion and Kong Survivor Instinct, I would, as someone who finds Slitterhead like the opposite of appealing, I might not keep it, because I have heard a good number of people that are like, look, the game's bad, but I'm glad it exists. It's got like weird, unique style and ideas in it, and like it's cool to see Shinji Mikami making something weird that he's passionate about. It's not a good video game, but it has value. Compared to something like Funko Fusion or Kong Survivor Instinct, which are clearly just like cash grab, low effort schlock. So I can't believe I'm saying it, but I might advocate for Slitterhead to not be amongst our worst games.
No,
unless you feel passionately.
I completely agree, because I feel the same way about this that I do about the Deadly Premonition games. Okay, because like those games are awful, but they are so strange and singular and unique and like emblematic of that person's ideas and philosophy on game design and storytelling, that like I like that those things are around because they challenge the norms, even if they are not good. Even if I don't think that they are good, I am glad they are around. And like I said, I'm happy to see Shinji Mikami be able to do a thing on his own and kind of get an unfiltered view on it. I'm not happy with the product, obviously, but I fall in that camp of people who are like glad that he got a shot at it.
Sure.
But yeah, so I'm cool with not moving it up.
Okay. Next game, speaking of schlock, is Skull and Bones.
Yeah, wow.
This came out on everything. developed
like
by
10
Ubisoft's
years ago, right?
Singapore
This was like a
team.
2014
Yeah,
game.
I'm pretty sure it was announced at the Game Awards back when it was on Spike TV, like basic cable.
Yeah.
This is a Metacritic of 59. I played the beta.
You
for
did
Skull and
play
Bones
some of this. That's right.
because I wanted to talk about it on the podcast.
Right.
I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I did that. I believe my takeaway on the podcast was like, this isn't the worst game ever made. Like, it's not fun. It's super not fun, but it's not like offensively bad. That's true. However, looking at what the rest of the game is that I admittedly did not play because the beta was enough, it looks like you just do that forever as a live service.
Oh, man.
And I feel like Skull and Bones is kind of singular on this list for, Concord is the biggest train wreck of the year. But I feel like Skull and Bones is maybe the biggest brand killer of the year. Like if you look at Ubisoft and the reaction a lot of their games have had over recent years being predominantly negative, even the ones that are like okay are still not exciting. Skull and Bones is the one that kind of stands alone as like, fuck, dude, it's over for you guys, isn't it?
Oh, man. Remember after they had announced it, like 2 years later, everyone was like, all right, some Skull and Bones gameplay this year. Let's kind of like, I'm interested to see what this is all about. I want another Assassin's Creed Black Flag. And then what they did, I forget if it was like E3 or what it was, but what they did, they brought out those that quartet of shanty singer dudes, and they just sang, and that was their Skull and Bones
home
thing.
free.
Yes, home
free. The sing off winners from season 2 or whatever. The sing off competition show, acapella competition show. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
How this game released like it is. Like, this game had to have been rebooted a number of times. The live service stuff, I'm sure, was forced on this game in a myriad of ways. It's just like they had a template for this.
Yeah.
Multiple templates. Like the OG template of Black Flag, sure. Pirate game, etc.
And that came from that company. Like, that is a Ubisoft game. That, like, they had all the shit they needed.
Like, Assassin's Creed, which one was it? Was it Odyssey? That had a lot of ship combat stuff also. And it was like pretty fun. I played like 120 hours of Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I was deep in COVID depression at the time, but I did it and I got the Platinum Trophy. And look, the ship combat is way better in that game than it is in this game. In this game, it's the whole fucking game.
Right.
Like, the whole game is that.
And it's they had like Sea of Thieves to look at.
Also
like,
true.
I mean, it's a very different style of game, but like they had that as a good test case of like, hey, what do people actually want out of this kind of game?
And it's obvious that they shifted focuses too many times.
Yeah.
And there's clearly so much cut content from this game. Like, you can only get out of your ship on the main pirate hub area, which is where all the live servicey stuff happens, all the quests and et cetera, et cetera. And then there are like random spots that you can also get out of your ship to like go to a different pirate camp and like maybe get a quest or like find a resource, but you can't do anything there. It's just like a little spot that you can walk around. And it just very clearly, there was meant to be more going on there than there is. Because why even allow you to get out of your ship at all?
Right.
Because you can't do anything outside of your ship. And also, why can't you do anything outside of your ship? It's a pirate game. Like, you might as well have had us playing as a boat. Like, make the boat sentient.
Character.
Because that's basically all it is.
Yeah.
It's crazy that this is the game that released after like 10 years of development. It actually isn't that crazy because the game was in development for 10 years.
Yeah, and that's what happens, man.
It is wild that they did launch it. That's maybe the craziest part. Because like Concord, there was clearly delusion that they thought this was going to hit and they just fucked up. Skull and Bones, like, they had announced it and re-announced it and shown it and re-shown it so many fucking times. Everyone was laughing at them to their faces.
Yeah.
And they still launched this game. Just cancel it. Live service games cost money to keep online. Just cancel it.
Totally.
It's crazy. I think Skull and Bones is absolutely a shortlist game.
Yeah, and like I do wonder if people listening think that is like inconsistent, right? Because we're not moving up Concord or Foamstars.
Concord is a totally average PvP shooter,
right,
with some flawed mechanics.
Right.
Skull and Bones is a bad video game.
Right.
It is not fun. Dude, you collect wood by chopping down a tree. You don't get out of the ship to cut it down. Just a floating minigame pops up. It's asinine.
That's crazy.
Skull and Bones is horrible.
You can get out of your ship. Why isn't that one of the things you can do while you're out of the ship?
That's what I'm saying,
bro.
Man. Like this game,
That's
it
crazy.
feels cobbled together. And no, it's like, what's the opposit of cobbling together? Cobbling apart. It's like they had a game that they just like took chunks. Decobbled. They decobbled a pirate game. Like it feels like they just like ripped some of the systems out of the game without patching the holes over.
Yeah.
That's what the game feels like.
They just like they couldn't get that stuff to work, and so they just eventually had to scrap it.
Right. But they didn't try to fix what they scrapped.
No.
Like you can see the remnants, you can see the scars from the stuff that they ripped out of this game. Sucks.
Oh, that's crazy.
The bones are protruding from the wounds of whatever game. I don't know. I lost the analogy.
Yep.
I was trying to tie in the name of the game.
Yeah, okay.
You saw where I was going with that. Yeah, Skull and Bones is being kept. Next on the list is South Park Snow Day. I'm so happy that we
get to
live
talk
in an
about
era again
another South
where we
Park
can talk
game.
about bad South Park games.
Man. Full
This
circle.
game came out on everything. Developed my question. I have a question.
Yeah,
Why?
Why?
Published by THQ Nordic. There's second banger on this list.
Yeah.
It also has a Metacritic of 59. This game came out at the end of March, which is the perfect time for a snow-themed game, don't you think?
Yeah.
Beginning of spring. That's when we want to play like snowball
as all
fights.
the snow is ending. But boy, I didn't want to see the snow go, so I had to like continue living in the moment with South Park Snow Day.
Yeah, I mean there's nothing to this game. It is extremely bare bones and broken. It's just like a multiplayer-esque. You play on a map, you throw snowballs, there are like power-ups that you get. It's really fucking ugly.
Yeah.
The game is so ugly, like really polygonal characters. It has a horrible sense of humor. It's like an old school South Park game where they just like shout references at you the whole time.
Right.
Like there are no jokes. It's just like, hey, remember this quote from the show? Hey, remember this? It's the member berries style. Yeah. It also, like I said, it's broken, but also it performs really poorly, particularly on Switch, which isn't terribly surprising. This is, I mean, yeah, man, bad South Park games. They're all the rage. I don't know. I definitely think that this is one of the worst games, but I'm finding myself very similar to how we talk about the South Park games in the 90s that we have been talking about. It's hard to work up a lot of passion for a bad South Park game.
Yeah, it's interesting,
I don't know.
right? I think it's just because we are so conditioned by how bad they have been that it's like there's zero expectations.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of just like
Stick of
jaded towards
Truth
South Park.
and Fractured Butthole,
Fractured
notwithstanding.
Butthole. Right. Yeah, both those games were fantastic, but they were made by Obsidian and
Right.
Ubisoft, admittedly.
And the heavy involvement by Matt and Trey.
Also true. And that was not the case with South Park Snow Day.
No.
Which is very clear.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I think with the fact that we don't have that many games,
we only
I
have
think
3
keep
games.
it for now.
I think it goes up.
I think we
like
keep
if
it.
we were to look back, I would rather move up Snow Day than any of the other games we've passed on. So
Sure. Yeah, I think that's fair. Also, I should amend the title because it's actually South Park Snow Day!
true.
Exclamation
point. Yeah.
For SEO purposes.
Right.
Next on the list, our penultimate game, Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection.
No, we have one more. Oh yeah, Penultimate is the one before the last. Sorry. Yep.
Yeah.
That's
how
right.
about you read a book?
I should.
How about you learn some words?
All right. Talk to you later. I'm going to go read the new Brandon Sanderson book. Bye.
This came out on everything, developed and published by Aspire. The third game in a row with a Metacritic of 59. This is mostly
weird.
for
Those
me
were all 59s.
Mostly a launch problem. Because, I mean, if you've obviously been listening to the podcast or you follow games at all, you remember the debacle of the Battlefront collection when it released. Very Halo Master Chief collection in that it literally just didn't work. They didn't pay for enough of the servers to host enough players.
Like so many
just
people came out in droves that wanted to play this and just couldn't because there weren't enough server slots open. It was a total nightmare.
Yeah. Which apparently has gotten better as time has gone by. They've patched the game a ton, and apparently it's in like a fairly decent place today. The biggest bummer is like, I was super hyped for this. I was going to be a day one, but then when I saw reviews and people talking about how it's like unplayable, doesn't work, and I was like, okay, well then I'm out.
The
and then
disappointment
too much time
factor is really high with this one.
Yeah. So, and I mean, once enough time goes by, it's like it's hard to justify going back, especially when the player count was so low. By the time they fixed it, that like you're not gonna be able to play online with a lot of people anyway. But yeah, the original, I mean, those two Battlefront games are two of my favorite games ever, and I'm really sad that this was borked and that I never played it.
Yeah, because like with a classic collection like this, we can't look at the quality of the game. We're specifically looking at the quality of the job that Aspyr did in bringing it as a collection.
Did you say Aspyr on purpose? Because it's Aspire.
Oh, Aspyr is way funnier. Aspire makes way more sense. Oh, Aspire. Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep saying Aspyr because it's funny.
It is funny.
It is much funnier. Sorry, I read too many fantasy books. It's like so why would I think it was a normal word? Yeah, but so looking at the job that they did and the package that they put together, it's like they did add a couple of things. Like they added more assault modes on different maps, so it's not just like the Mos Eisley Cantina in 2. You can play like all the Jedi fight mode, the assault mode, and other maps and stuff too. They're like things like that I think are nice touches in there. Most of the problems were around some random technical things that I feel like they patched up pretty quickly.
And they also, like, they added some characters that weren't in it the first time, and one of the ways they did that was they, like, stole one of the mods for a character and just, like, without credit, used that person's work to put that character in the game.
That's crazy.
Which is not ideal.
Yeah, that's bad.
Yeah. So there were like some unethical issues beyond just it not working, which you could argue there were some unethical decisions, which is why the game didn't work, because they clearly were cheaping out on the network structure.
Yeah, that's tough. But like if you because I'm sure a company like Aspyr would do like a bunch of market research into like trying to figure out what the server load's going to need to be, and they just
it wasn't
totally borked
no.
it. There were like barely any.
That was like, their excuse. Yeah. Their excuse was, just too many people wanted to play it, and then people did some digging and were like, "No way, man! Like you couldn't have supported 100 people,
right?"
Like they clearly fucked up, and then were trying to pass the buck. So I think that there's some like sinister, bad stuff going on with Aspyr. That being said, knowing that they've done some work at least to get it in a better state, I don't know that it's. I don't think it's worse than any of the games that we've talked about thus far that we're keeping, and certainly not as bad as the final game on this list, so I don't think it's going to make it.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. All right, and the final game is the ultimate game. If it's not penultimate, I guess it would be ultimate. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. This did release this year, in case you fucking forgot, like I did.
I think most people did. I definitely did.
This came out on PC, PS5, Xbox Series X and S. Developed by Rocksteady. Yes, you heard me correctly. Rocksteady made this horrible game. Published by WB. Has a Metacritic of 60, so only 1 point better than the previous 3 titles we talked about. I have like a review quote here.
Hit me.
While the story seems able to capture people's attention and the combat is functional and snappy enough to be fun, the mission structure and loot mechanics are tired and overcooked. That kind of sums it all up. Like, what I've heard of the story is that it's totally fine. Like Suicide Squad.
The character stuff seemed interesting.
Yeah.
And like the way they alter some of the characters is kind of cool. I would say the overall plot is pretty lame, with like actually killing the Justice League, and then they really undo a lot of that stuff by the end.
Yeah.
But a lot of the character interactions, for as like annoying as many of the characters are, it's kind of intentional. Like Captain Boomerang is one of like the all-time trolls of the DCU. Like, he sucks, but that's part of what makes him fun. The writing seemed good. It's everything.
It's everything else. The part where it's a video game. And like, also like combat functional, right? Like that. When I've watched gameplay of it, when I've heard people talk about it, when I've read about it, because it like people talked about it for a long time. There's a lot of discourse when it came out, and I tried to absorb as much of that as I could stand to do. The game perfectly fine, even fun sometimes. It's just all like the mission structure stuff and like all of the like the incremental loot mechanics. All of that was like it totally detracted from the experience. Like, what could have been sort of like an Ultimate Alliance like co-op fun romp experience that's like tongue-in-cheek and turns the DC universe on its head and has a lot of fun with that stuff. It could have just been like a fun co-op romp game, but they tried to add and bolt on, a la Dead Space 3, all of these live service microtransaction mechanics onto it that just had no business being there. And that's all like corporate leadership decision bullshit.
Yeah. And because of that strategy, you have to homogenize the rest of the game.
Totally.
Because everything needs to be replaceable. Like, you need to be able to drop in as character X, Y, or Z at any given time, depending on what your friends are using, etc. So none of the characters can actually truly be unique, which is why you have fucking Captain Boomerang using a sniper rifle instead of, I don't know, the Boomerangs.
Right.
Like, it's just
crazy.
It's crazy.
So yeah, I mean, like that's my comparison, right? Is like to people who are into DC comics, like this, I feel like is their Dead Space 3. Because like for me, all of that stuff in Dead Space 3 really, like, they killed Dead Space with that when they did that.
Oh yeah.
They killed the franchise by doing that. And
not just Dead Space, they killed Visceral.
They killed Visceral by doing that. And I'm like,
and they might just kill Rocksteady.
They might have just killed Rocksteady. Like, I don't know what the future of Rocksteady looks like post Suicide Squad. I have a feeling
there have already been layoffs.
Yeah,
right?
Well, yes, yeah, massive layoffs. But yeah, like this game. It is so wildly misguided, and like for all the games that like we don't feel a whole lot about on this list that are just like okay and bad in a couple of other ways, like there's a kernel of a good video game experience in here that was just fucking ruined, like completely ruined by what I have to imagine, because like if we look at history, and we should be taking lessons from history, it's just this like bullshit, like complete misunderstanding of what makes art and what makes a video game fun and what audiences want, and just like people who have no business actually making these decisions, who are not the creatives, who are not the passionate people working on it, make like flowing those decisions downward just in an effort to try and nickel and dime the most they possibly can. And when you do that, like there is a real, and I think we are seeing this as an industry, and maybe to a degree that the people at the top are finally realizing in some pockets, but you can really shoot yourself in the foot by doing that, because consumers are more savvy in this space than they have been in the past, and we know a lot more about the predatory commercialist practices of corporate video games.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even speculation to say that like the execs were the ones making this decision, those decisions, because like no developer has sat down at their desk and been like, how do I extract the most monetary value out of a player?
Yeah.
Like no developer thinks that way.
Right.
Like it's only the people that look at the numbers that think that way. So it's not like no one at Rocksteady that are engineers and art designers and level designers and world builders. None of them are to blame whatsoever for the state of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Unfortunately, those are the people that will pay the price.
Right.
No one that made the decisions that made this game will bear any weight or recourse for what happened with the game.
Yeah.
I'm sure they all cashed nice bonus checks for the holidays.
Yeah, exactly. And so like for all of those reasons, I don't know that this game sucks more than some of the other games on this list, but
yes, it does.
But I mean the game itself.
Yes, it does. Okay. It's still yes. Again, I'm not saying it's not broken the way something like South Park Snow Day is, but yes, it is absolutely one of. And I know where you were going with this. Like,
yes,
it matters to us more, so it should stick around. Right. But also, like, I don't want to give it a pass just based on that. It also is definitely one of the worst games that came out this year.
Okay.
Did you watch 5 seconds? Like,
yeah, I know.
Like, you could put compilation YouTube videos with title of like playing Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League for 10 seconds without having a seizure challenge, parentheses, impossible. Like, there's so much explosions and bright purples and UI elements popping off every 5 fucking seconds. This game is like unlookatable. It hurts to look at.
All right, yeah, it's moving up.
I already added it, bro.
Oh yeah, you did. Nice.
I added it before you even started talking about it.
All right, cool. Okay, well that's the end of our long list. So the games on our short list are Funko Fusion, Kong Survivor Instinct, Skull and Bones, South Park Snow Day, and Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. So that's 5 video games.
Yes.
Ostensibly
an
video
actually
games.
short list.
Yeah. We have to get that down to
Rare
3
for us.
And then we have to order those 3.
I believe that Skull and Bones and Suicide Squad should be on the list, and then we should talk about the other 3 smaller games that we did not play to see what we feel passionately about. Because Skull and Bones, I played well enough of to know how fucking rotten it is. And Suicide Squad, we both saw enough of and cared enough about to know that it's one of the worst games of the year.
Yeah, I think I'll go along with that. I think I agree with that.
Because, I would put Skull and Bones... No, I wouldn't. Because I was going to compare it to Veilguard and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, but those other 2 games are nowhere near as bad.
No, not at all. Not at all.
I just mean, in terms of games that, I have an anger towards because of what they decided to do that they didn't need to do, I would put it in that category. But it kind of proves the point that I was making as we were talking about it before. It is actually that bad.
Right.
Because it's so much worse than Veilguard or Rebirth.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. Okay.
So Funko Fusion, Kong Survivor Instinct, and South Park Snow Day.
We have to pick one of those 3. And I think that choice is easy, actually.
Yeah, I think if we're being quote unquote objective about it, I definitely feel like Funko Fusion is the worst game of the 3.
Yes.
I think that you and I would be most interested in a South Park game, probably. Although, Kong Survivor Instinct, it being a Metroidvania, the side-scrolling stuff, that could be appealing if done right. Funko Fusion was never gonna be a good idea.
Right.
It was never gonna work.
Just like Funkos were never a good idea. Because now, now we just have all of this,
plastic.
Yeah, all of this plastic that is just, these, oh God, what is it called? Not fossil fuel. like the what is another word for the plastics that are derived from oil?
Like microplastics?
No.
Oh, I don't know.
I can't think of the term, but more of that shit in the world, like to serve this fucking stupid, useless purpose. Like those Funko Pops that are on your shelf right now, listener, you pervert, are gonna outlast your grandchildren's grandchildren. They will be around long after the humans are dead.
Yeah.
And when another society comes to this planet from far off, they're going to look at it, and like the way we're looking at Mayan artifacts now, they're going to look at those fucking Funko Pops and be like, did these people just have like, I don't get it, because their skulls that we're finding are not huge. So why are they having these stylized representations of like everyone?
Why do they got such big heads?
Yeah, and why do they all have such large eyes? Like, is this with the skin, and was it all skin and cartilage over the skull that made it that big?
The good news
Funko Pops
is
suck.
that Funko Fusion won't be around for your grandkids'
That's right.
because it's going to get shut down in 2025.
Oh, yeah, it will. Oh, man.
So yeah, is that our list? Funko Fusion, Skull and Bones, and Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League?
Yeah, I think that's the bottom three.
That's a good 3-pack for sure.
Okay, now we need to put them in an order.
Yeah. I could kind of go any direction on this. Although no, I would say, like, I don't think I was gonna say I don't think Skull and Bones should win, but I don't know about that. Because that game is so unfun.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the safe route and probably the correct route is that Suicide Squad should win.
See, I don't know, because Suicide Squad has some defenders. Skull and Bones doesn't.
Well, I don't really care in this capacity about like what defenders of the game say. I am going off of what I have seen and heard from people I trust, not just like randos on the internet. And everything I've seen and heard about this game is how bloated and samey and uninteresting the combat is and the world design is. And that, yeah, there's a lot of like good character stuff and some interesting ideas in the story, but it certainly does not stick to landing. And a big part of that is because it's a live service game, so it can't end. Although it is going to end because they're no longer launching content for it after this latest like season that they're doing.
If someone had a boomerang to my head and said, I have to pick one of these 3 games to play, I would probably pick Suicide Squad.
I would absolutely pick Suicide Squad, but that doesn't mean that it shouldn't win. Because by you are saying yourself, either you have to play one of these or you will be murdered by Boomerang.
Right.
That's not a good measure of what games are bad and what games are not.
I'm just saying,
because the other option is dying. I'll play any of these games if the other option is dying.
Yeah, but like you're also offered the choice, right? And so
sure.
And so I think from like as a video game, I would rather play Suicide Squad than like the super boring, lifeless Skull and Bones or the like broken, frustrating, diabolically, morally and creatively bankrupt Funko Fusion.
Yeah, but you know what I would rather do than play Suicide Squad is not play Suicide Squad. Also,
sure,
like I don't want to play it.
But
though.
We're ordering the bottom 3. We are stuck with these 3 games right now.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like just the fact that you would rather play it than these other 2 shitty games doesn't mean that it's less bad. It just has more in it that you might enjoy. And also part of this that we always consider is like, how much do we care about this?
Yeah.
Like you and I cared
I care
about Skull
a
and
lot
Bones
about
when it
the
was
fact
announced.
that Funko Fusion exists. As someone who purged all of the Funko Pops from my life this year, I do care quite a bit that this video game exists.
You think Funko Fusion should win?
I would put Funko Fusion at the top as the worst video game. Okay, well
then I think we can go ahead and say Skull and Bones is number 3 because I'm fine. I don't need Skull and Bones above Funko Fusion. I said my piece. That game blows. I hear what you're saying. You have a long and storied history with Funko Pops. I just think of like, yeah, you would be more prone to playing Suicide Squad, but if you heard that these games existed, how would you feel about them? You didn't know anything about them other than they are video games that are about these things made by these teams. Funko Fusion, which is a Lego TT Games-esque multiple IP adventure-y game, or Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, a co-op game made by fucking Rocksteady. Which one of those two do you think is going to be good, Kyle?
Okay, look. So you're saying that we have to factor in expectation.
Yes. And how much we care about it. Look, I know that you say you ironically care about there being a Funko Fusion game. I 100% get that. I'm not, even though you kind of say it jokey, that I think does matter.
I
hate Funko Pops.
I care in that it makes me angry that it exists.
Exactly. But like, if we try to take a step back here, Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, if made as a legit co-op Rocksteady game.
Sure. Okay.
Could be one of the best games of the year.
Sure.
Funko Fusion was always going to be dog shit. Always.
And like, to me, what I get out of that argument is that Funko Fusion is the worst game because it was never gonna be good.
No. It's also like we talk about this. This isn't most disappointing, but that factors in because these are games we care about. I could have never have heard of Funko Fusion until today. I happened to see it on Skill Up's weekly news show because he was making fun of it. But I could have never known that it existed because why would I? Who cares? It's a shitty Funko Pop
no, they
game.
they showed it at one of the big conferences. It like got like a minute long spotlight.
Stop being obtuse. You know what I am saying. Suicide Squad is the new game from fucking Rocksteady, one of the best developers of the last 15 years. And this is the thing that got launched. Their studio might not exist next year because of this fucking game. Hundreds of phenomenally talented people might be out of work. This isn't BioWare, right? Like, BioWare of old doesn't exist because those people don't work there anymore. That's not what happened here. It's still the team, although it isn't anymore because the heads of the studio left right before this game launched because they fucking knew what was going to happen. So now Rocksteady's gone. But the same people that made these amazing games made Suicide Squad. That's what makes it so bad. Because we know why it's bad. Like, fuck that game so much.
I'm having a hard time getting past the fact that Funko Fusion is the worst game on the list.
You can't objectively say that because you've not played both. I think you're probably right.
I am totally right.
Look, it's not that big of a difference. Funko Fusion has a 54 Metacritic and Suicide Squad has a 60.
Okay.
So they're not that far apart, bro.
Yeah.
I just think that, like, I probably agree with... No, I do. I agree with you that Funko Fusion is probably the capital letter, objectively worst video game of the three. But it is by no measure the worst game that you and I care about.
Right.
And this isn't a year of like Cyberdeck where it's so insane. Because I think Cyberdeck ended up winning that year. But like Cyberdillo is another good pull of just like an insane, weird, niche, shitty game. That like, yeah, man, it's probably the worst game, but like we didn't play it. We don't really care. It's just uniquely bad. And that's Funko Fusion. But Suicide Squad is fucking... It's sad, man. It makes me sad and angry.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. and then Funko Fusion. Okay.
Yeah, I'm totally good with Funko Fusion over Skull and Bones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think, again, you and I care way more about the games Rocksteady is making and what happens to Rocksteady because of Suicide Squad than we do a Funko Fusion game. It sucks ass. It's a horrible game. It should definitely be in the top 3.
Okay. All right.
Dude, Funko Pop is so stupid, though.
Dude, I seriously look up gameplay. People at home.
Oh, no, I've seen plenty.
People at home, please.
Oh, yes,
please.
Absolutely.
It's so bad. Hey.
But then also go watch some Suicide Squad, and unless you have epilepsy, do not watch Suicide Squad gameplay if you have epilepsy. Like, straight up, seriously. Like those warnings that they put before every video game that if you're sensitive to all that stuff and it's always like, yeah, whatever. That's actually important if you're going to watch Suicide Squad.
Yeah. All right. The worst 3 games, the games that suck the most of 2024. Coming in at number 3, Skull and Bones. Number 2, Funko Fusion. And the worst game, the game that sucks the most of 2024 is Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League.
Yeah.
Kill Rocksteady.
And that's the best description.
Suicide Squad, Kill Rocksteady.
Yeah. It's not the worst game. It's the game that sucks the most.
Yep.
Yes.
You're right.
I know.
Okay.
I know.
Okay.
No. I look, I totally see where you're coming from. Absolutely. But I feel very passionately.
No, and you are right, because historically that is also the way we go with our other categories. Is it's not always the game that is the worst; it's the game that sucks the most.
That's why we called it that. Yep. We wanted to give ourselves an excuse to rag on games that aren't that bad, but that just piss us off.
Yes.
Although Suicide Squad is that bad.
Yeah. Let passion trump quality.
Yes.
All right.
We're going to have to bleep that word.
Yeah. Let passion
overcome
quality. Hey, you can email us at info@ShayHatesEverything.com. That's info@ShayHatesEverything.com. Let us know what you think of our list. What are your games that suck the most of 2024? Do you disagree with any of our statements? Send us some corrections, or send us something. Probably disagree with us, or send us something completely random, which is what most of our emailers do, and we will read them on the flagship podcast, which is coming up at the beginning of January.
Monday, January 6th.
Yes,
will be
a story
the next
day,
regular episode.
Yeah. In a day that lives on in infamy, unfortunately. But you can put that to the back of your mind with a regular episode of the Shea Hates Everything flagship podcast, Monday, January 6th. We'll be talking about Game Awards stuff. We'll be talking about our most anticipated games of 2025 and
a lot of catch up on stuff we've been playing. Yeah. You and I have been playing a fuck ton of games over the last month.
Yeah.
Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. I've played some Balatro. Oh yeah, we've got a lot of stuff to chat about.
Yeah, so. We've been trying to do a lot of the game of the year gaming leading up to that. And
I'm not gonna lie, it's been awesome.
It's been
really nice.
Yes,
to play really good games.
Yes,
I stopped playing Dragon Age: The Veilguard because I said I want to play some good video games now, please. Right, and I have.
Yeah, I did beat Veilguard. I actually beat it.
Props to you, man. I made probably less than 10 hours.
Yeah,
I might go back to it, but. Probably not.
Yeah, just if you're listening at home and you're playing Veilguard, do all of the companion quests. Otherwise, the ending is so bad you'll wish you never played it to begin with.
The last plug.
Yeah, we have several other
positive.
Yeah, we have several other upcoming podcasts with tentative dates.
I don't want to list the dates here because we did it in the past and we have since changed our plans and we might change them again structurally. But in January, after the 6th episode, we will have some like mini episodes where we're doing just like some categorical, here are our favorite X's and Y's and
Our
Z's
superlatives.
mentioned. We might do worst characters. That might be one that we do, just some fun ones and some legit ones like, hey, our favorite music, things like that. And then on Monday, January 20th will be our actual Games That Don't Suck podcast. So our top 5 list, our collective top 5 list of the best games of 2024. So check that out. And then I guess maybe we'll do at the end of that, or as part of that, we can do our individual top 10s, because not all of those games will be on the Games That Don't Suck. But if you want to check out our top 10s, you can do that. I'm currently writing my Game of the Year blog post for 2023, not for 2024. So that won't be as relevant. Okay. But you can check that out in a couple of weeks when it's ready, because I always love to be timely on SheaAndSEverything.com. That's it. That's the last plug.
Well, and then somewhere in there we are gonna do our 151 Pokemon tier list.
Oh yeah, man, that's gonna
original
be
151, and that we're trying to figure out a video component for that as well.
Yes, that'll be on the Shea Hits Everything YouTube channel. We'll upload it as a podcast also, but it will be best enjoyed as a video on YouTube. So we'll link and everything to that, so it's easy to find, because I believe we have like 6 subscribers right now because I haven't really been promoting the YouTube channel.
Right.
But you can listen to all the episodes there with a nice little visual animator on top if you prefer, or you can continue to listen on whatever podcast service you're currently using.
That's right.
Or listen to it on all of them,
Just not
listen on
Samsung
Spotify, listen on
podcasts,
Apple Podcasts. Yeah,
they were embraced and then deleted.
That's a good throwback for the OG listeners. Samsung podcasts.
All right, hey everybody at home, thank you for listening. Subscribe to this podcast, leave a rating and or a review. If you can do both, you probably can. But most importantly, the biggest thing you can do to help us, help you, help us, is to tell your friends. Just let them know that there's these 2 weirdo goofballs who have a lot of opinions about video games and other things. And they happen to be brothers.
Weirdo goofballs.
They're just...
Maybe we can rebrand.
Yeah, just a couple of 2 weirdo goofballs doing a podcast. But guess what? They're brothers. Oh, man. Hey, thanks, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with me today, Shay, and this wonderful 2-hour-long Games That Suck podcast. That might be close to a record for us in terms of length.
Hey, it was necessary.
Yes. And, again, thanks everybody at home. I hope everybody at home had a terrific, or is having and going to have a terrific holiday season. No matter what you celebrate, when you celebrate, or who you celebrate it with. Spend some time with the people that you care about, and we will see you all, if not before, then in the new year. See ya.
Happy Festivus.